If your goal is to escape low elo as an AD carry as fast as possible, then you clicked on the right video. We'll be breaking down the top 10 best AD carry champions for climbing out of low elo. The order does matter, so the number one pick will be what we consider the strongest champion. And comment below, which AD carry champions do you think are the best for carrying in low elo? Don't cheat by looking ahead, let's see if your picks match our list. Also, if you want to learn how to carry bad teammates and finally escape low elo as an AD carry, there is nothing better than our brand new multi-chapter AD carry course at skillcap.com. This course will teach you everything you need to start carrying as an AD carry. Matchups, trading, dealing with bad supports, macro, teamfighting, mechanics. We cover everything you need. Pair that with our new Why You Suck at ADC course that teaches you how to fix the worst mistakes you're making. Then head on over to our Smurf commentaries. Select your champion to watch live commentaries from challenger players showing you how to carry out of the exact elo you're stuck in. You can try all of this risk-free, since if you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. You can unlock all of this through the exclusive discount you can only access through the link below. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank you've always wanted this season. Alright, now starting us off at number 10, we have the Sheriff of Piltover, Caitlyn. Caitlyn's long attack range is a huge advantage in low elo. With her 650 range, she can poke down enemies from a safe distance, allowing you to dominate the laning phase and generate big minion leads. Her Yordle snap traps provide excellent zone control. Placing them in choke points and around objectives can drastically limit enemy movement. While in lane, it will make it easier to catch out of position enemies and follow up with your support and jungler engages. Combine them with her 90 caliber net for an escape tool and you've got a champion that's pretty hard to pin down. And of course, let's not forget her ultimate, Ace in the Hole, which lets you secure kills from afar. All of this combines together to create a champion with a very strong laning phase who is also relatively safe with very few bad matchups. That being said, the reason she's not ranked higher on this list is that her mid game can be a bit lackluster compared to other AD carries. If you fail to get that early lead, well, her damage can feel underwhelming. At the same time, low elo games often go longer, and so generating early leads is not as important as late game scaling, and Caitlyn's late game is pretty average. She's also deceptively hard to play. Missing a key Piltover Peacemaker or misplacing a Yordle snap trap can drastically reduce her power in fights. And finally, Caitlyn lacks the mobility of other ADCs. While her 90 caliber net can help, it's not as reliable as dashes or blinks. This makes positioning and map awareness incredibly important, something low elo players usually struggle with to avoid getting caught out by assassins or divers. So, while Caitlyn offers strong laning, mastering her will require perfecting your mechanics and positioning and consistent snowballing to overcome her mid-game weaknesses. Next up at number 9, we have a fantastic pick for climbing out of low elo, Miss Fortune. Her laning phase is incredibly strong while also being easy to play. Her double up ability will bounce to hit the enemy behind the target, critically striking if it last hit a minion. Meanwhile, her passive Love Tap provides additional damage on her first auto attack against a new target. So, sneaking in single auto attacks while looking for double up crits becomes the core playstyle in lane. Meanwhile, her ultimate bullet time can turn the tide of teamfights with its massive area of effect damage. In low elo, where positioning mistakes are more common, a well-placed bullet time will constantly wipe out multiple enemies. However, Miss Fortune does have her downsides. She lacks mobility, making her vulnerable to ganks and hard-engaged champions. This means poor positioning can lead to being caught out and killed quickly. Additionally, while her ultimate is very powerful, it requires good positioning and timing to use effectively, and can be interrupted by crowd control. And finally, her damage output can fall off if she doesn't get ahead early, making it important to capitalize on her strong laning phase. Miss Fortune's biggest strength, though, is that her kit is straightforward, making her accessible to players who might not yet have high mechanical skill. Her simplicity doesn't compromise her effectiveness, though. Instead, it allows players to focus on macro play and positioning, which are crucial for climbing ranks. Which is why Miss Fortune remains a solid choice for climbing out of low elo. Now, making our 8th spot is none other than the Plague Rat himself, Twitch. First, we have to talk about his stealth ability, Ambush. Low elo players already struggle with map awareness, so the fact you can go invisible leads to a ton of easy kills and quick snowballs. His damage output also scales incredibly well. With his ultimate Spray and Pray, you can mow down entire teams with your auto attacks, dealing massive damage over a wide area from extremely far away. This means he can become a late game hyper carry, which is a big deal in low elo, where games not only go longer, but teammates are also not always the most reliable. At the same time, his passive's poison poison and contaminate ability do a ton of damage in a really sneaky way. This will constantly catch low elo players off guard by underestimating his damage. However, Twitch does come with some drawbacks. He's extremely squishy and vulnerable to crowd control while also lacking a dash or blink. So if you get caught out, you'll often get burst down without being able to do much. This makes positioning and map awareness crucial, which can be challenging for lower elo players. This also makes him more reliant on his support for protection and peel. If your support isn't on the same page or lacks the necessary skills, you'll find it difficult to survive in fights. Additionally, Twitch's early game is relatively weak compared to other ADCs. He needs time to farm and get items before he becomes a true threat. Don't be mistaken though, Twitch's ability to go invisible, deal massive area damage in teamfights, and carry games once he's farmed still makes him an incredibly powerful pick for low elo players looking to climb the ranks. Moving on to our 7th best AD carry in low elo, Seraphine. Some of you may be surprised Seraphine is on this list as she's not a traditional AD carry, but she consistently has one of the highest win rates in this role since her inception. She's pretty slept on by low elo players, while high elo players know her true power. First off, she has one of the safest, most consistent laning phases in the game. This is because of her Q ability, High Note. It has insanely high range, allowing her to both harass enemies, but more often just securing farm and pushing waves safely from a distance. Meanwhile, her W Surround Sound provides healing and shielding for both herself and her allies. This sustain helps her and her support survive trades and extended skirmishes, making her laning phase very forgiving. Basically, she has the safest, most consistent laning phases of any champion in the AD carry role. At the same time, once you get into team fights, her ultimate, Encore, is truly amazing. Its long range and wide area can charm and damage multiple enemies, completely swinging fights in your favor. This is especially powerful in low elo, where positioning and spell awareness isn't as good. However, Seraphine does come with her share of drawbacks as an AD carry. Her damage output relies heavily on her abilities rather than auto attacks. This makes her less effective in extended duels against traditional ADCs who can consistently output damage. This can also create issues with your low elo support, where they may force extended fights, not realizing this is Seraphine's weakness. She's also relatively squishy and lacks mobility. This does make her vulnerable to assassins and hard engage. Additionally, her reliance on landing skill shots means that missing key abilities can significantly reduce her effectiveness in fights compared to other ADCs that just need to right click. Still, despite her vulnerabilities, Seraphine's strong poke, sustain, and impactful crowd control makes her a versatile and powerful pick in the ADC role for low elo. Next, coming in at number 6, we have the virtuoso of death, Jhin. Jhin is great in low elo because he does a ton of damage, but in a way that keeps him much safer than other ADCs. At first, the fact that he has to reload after 4 bullets seems like a downside. However, his bullet mechanic does 2 things for him. His 4th shot always crits, dealing bonus damage the lower in health the enemy is, while also just massively increasing the damage of every shot he takes. At the same time though, anytime he crits, he gets a big burst of movement speed. That means where other AD carries have to constantly be attacking to do maximum damage, putting themselves in danger, Jhin can actually weave back and forth, landing one shot, then creating distance and getting out of danger before going back in to land another. His landing phase is also both safe and strong, since his Q ability gives him amazing wave clear and poke at the same time. In most matchups, it guarantees you'll have the push advantage in lane. Combine this with his traps, which you can use as additional wards in lane to slow and catch jungle ganks early, and you can start to see how he can be a very powerful laner. He's also incredibly versatile, his W being a long-range crowd control that roots enemies by your attacks or those of your allies. And his ultimate, Curtain Call, is a long-range ability that can both initiate fights with the slow or just snipe low-health enemies with its damage. Jhin does have his downsides though. His lack of dash or blink makes him a target for assassins and hard-engaged champions. However, the biggest reason he's not higher on this list is his difficulty. While his bullet mechanic is incredibly powerful, it requires mechanical mastery to truly unlock its full power, while his crowd control abilities also require precise accuracy as well. To be honest, he just has a lot of tricks and combos that you have to learn. That's actually exactly why we created a brand new Jhin course on our website, skillcap.com. For example, take Jhin's fadeaway ult. Most Jhin players tunnel way too much on their auto attacks, not realizing one of your best dueling patterns is to auto attack a couple of times and then run away. Then, after you've built some distance, you just ult. Remember, your ult does damage based on the enemy's missing health, so those autos you landed got them low and now you can finish them off. This is incredibly important to know, especially versus champions that beat you in a fair 1v1. They'll think they can win because they can deal a lot of damage to you. But but your ability to simply speed away after a trade gives them no counterplay, since they're now no longer in range to threaten you. Meanwhile, you can easily finish them off from 3,000 yards away. Our new Jhin course is jam-packed with all the most important tricks challenger Jhin players use to climb the ranks fast. Alright, now for our 5th best AD carry in low elo, we have Tristana. In many ways, Tristana is the most well-rounded AD carry on this list. Her E ability, Explosive Charge, gives her tremendous burst damage when fully stacked, while also then resetting her W, Rocket Jump's cooldown. This gives her both excellent escape ability, but also sets her up to engage from unexpectedly long distances and assassinate targets. Meanwhile, her Q, Rapid Fire, gives her an insane attack speed boost, while her ultimate, Buster Shot, is a powerful tool for disengaging or securing kills. This means she can be easy to play as she has pretty much no skill shots. Not only does this grant her a very strong early game, but she also has great late game scaling too, in no small part due to her passive that increases her auto attack, E, and ult range every single level. It even surpasses Caitlyn's range at level 18. That being said, she doesn't have that top tier late game hyper carry scaling that other ADCs like Twitch, Vayne, Kog'Maw, Kai'Sa, and Jinx have baked into their design. She's also a lot more single target focused with her damage, and so won't be as impactful in big team fights compared to other picks. What that means is you can't expect to just sit passively in lane and just outscale your opponents. You do want to be looking to take advantage of your strong early game to snowball instead. This need for early aggression can lead to jumping into your death, giving her a bit of a different learning curve than most. Her abilities can also feel a bit clunky at times and require you to know a few tricks and some time to learn to get the most out of them. For example, like knowing how to buffer her W, where when you time it right, you can actually cast during the time where crowd control has hit you to completely negate it. Still, a champion with a strong early game, great scaling, tons of mobility, and can self-peel makes for one of the best choices for low elo. You really can't go wrong with Tristana. And slipping into our 4th spot is none other than Nilah. Nilah is a very unique AD carry with a lot of built-in power. For example, her passive gives her and her nearest ally champion 50% bonus experience they would have lost from sharing. That's pretty crazy. One of her biggest strengths though is that she's not as complicated to play as she may seem. A huge amount of her strength that actually just comes from her Q, Formless Blade. It's a low cooldown damaging ability that upon hitting an enemy gives her basic attacks bonus range, attack speed, and turns her autos into an AoE cone attack. At the same time, her Q passive gives her basic attacks armor penetration and heal her, giving her a shield if it heals beyond max health. So spamming Q and auto attacks isn't exactly that mechanically demanding. Her W, Jubilant Veil, is pretty much every ADC's dream ability. She becomes ghosted, gains movement speed, and dodges all basic attacks, and reduces incoming magic damage by 25%. You can even apply it to teammates to give them a shortened effect. What really makes her strong in low elo though is her E ability, Slipstream. It's a fixed distance dash with a pretty long range that can actually stock up to 2 charges. You combine this with her W, and you can start to see both how easy it can be to run players down or just simply escape to safety. And we haven't even touched on her ultimate, with its crowd control damage and healing can massively swing team fights. So if Nilah is so amazing, why isn't she higher up on the list? Well, it mainly has to do with her auto attack range. It's half the average ADCs at 225, which only gets boosted to 350 from her Q. This makes her vulnerable to harass and poke in the laning phase. You can't just sit back and expect to go through lane without issue. You're gonna need to know how to create winning engages. This actually makes her playstyle much closer to a melee champion than a ranged champion that most AD carry players are used to, which can make her much harder to learn. And this doesn't just apply to laning. It means instead of aiming to kite from range, you need to be looking for good engages, more like a bruiser or assassin. Now, if that kind of playstyle is more of a positive than a negative for you, well, then look no further than Nilah as your pick to climb out of low elo. Alright, now we enter the top 3 best low elo AD carries, and our 3rd spot is going to the daughter of the void, Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is probably the most versatile AD carry on this list. Literally, she does both magical and physical damage. Her abilities kind of do everything. She has great damage per second, with her E giving a massive attack speed steroid, and her passive applying on-hit magic damage through stacks of plasma. She also has tremendous burst damage not only from her other basic abilities, but once she applies 5 stacks of plasma, it does bonus damage based on missing health. I mean, if you build more AP heavy, suddenly your W becomes a super long range poking tool that will hit like a truck. Even her ultimate is extremely versatile. You can use it to dive into the thick of things and clean clean up fights, or to kite enemies trying to dive you, outplaying them from range. She's also a fantastic late game carry, with each of her basic abilities having a built-in evolution mechanic that gives them super powerful scaling, something that's extremely valuable in low elo where games go longer and you can't rely on your teammates. So, if Kai'Sa is so amazing, why is she not ranked higher? Well, a big reason is her weak early game. She truly has great scaling, but it comes at the expense of a relatively weak laning phase. This just gives her a lot more difficult matchups than those ranked higher on this list. She's also a bit more mechanically demanding than most ADCs, where you can't just sit back and rain down autos from safety. You need smart, well-timed ability usage, while also being comfortable getting into closer ranges and skirmishing. Still, there's a reason she made our top 3. You really can't go wrong maining Kai'Sa through the lower ranks. Next, coming in as the second best AD carry for low elo, the Frost Archer known as Ashe. Ashe has always been considered a beginner-friendly AD carry to play, but don't confuse ease of use with weakness. She's incredibly powerful. She has the second highest attack range of any ADC at 600, making her both oppressive and safe in the laning phase. At the same time, a huge amount of her strength is baked into her auto attacks. They slow enemies, making kiting way easier, but also do increased damage to slowed enemies. Each attack also generates a stack of focus, and at 4 stacks she can activate her Q for a huge attack speed and damage boost. This really gives her insane damage per second. Combine that with her easy to use W that is nearly impossible to miss, and you just have an extremely powerful, straightforward champion. Her ultimate is amazing in low elo too, since players in the lower ranks often miss position. It lets you capitalize on this and make picks without having to rely on your teammates. She only has a few downsides. First, the lack of a blink or dash does make her more vulnerable to assassins and engages. And second, she isn't a late game hyper carry. Don't get me wrong though, she's still super powerful later on, but isn't that 1v9 carry that you can sometimes need with bad teammates. She kind of traded that huge late game strength for a very stable, consistent power curve from beginning to end. Still, if you're looking for an extremely powerful, consistent, well-rounded AD carry for low elo, then Ashe is a great choice. Now, before we get into our number 1 pick for low elo, let's cover a few honorable mentions. There are a few champions that can be great at carrying in low elo, but aren't on the list due to being so difficult to play. 2 examples are Vayne and Draven. Sivir is a champion that is great for low elo, simple to play, easy to farm and scale up into team fights, but just barely didn't make the cut when we formed the top 10. Zeri is another champion we strongly considered placing on this list, as she's a great hyper carry, but her balancing has been incredibly volatile since her release. She's gone from being super strong to nearly unplayably weak, so we thought best to leave her off because of that. And finally is Kog'Maw, one of the best late game scaling hyper carries. He jumped back into the meta after receiving some big buffs this season. However, we feel he's still too reliant on teammates to peel and protect you, which isn't exactly a winning recipe in low elo. But if you're duoing with a support, he can be a great choice. Alright, and now for the number 1 best AD carry for low elo, Jinx. Jinx really stands out as the number 1 AD carry for low elo, and here's why. Her passive, Get Excited, is a game changer. Every takedown gives her a massive speed boost, allowing her to reposition quickly and chase down fleeing enemies. This also gives her a stacking attack speed boost that allows her to exceed the attack speed cap built into the game for insane damage per second. This is basically a built-in 1v9 tool for teamfights. Her Q ability, Switcheroo, gives her both short range and long range options, making her super versatile. Pow Pow, the minigun, does massive DPS for close fights, while Fishbones, the rocket launcher, offers AoE damage and huge range, far exceeding even Caitlyn, to poke from a safe distance. Meanwhile, her E, Flame Chompers, is a fantastic kiting tool, since on contact with enemies, it knocks them down, canceling their dash and rooting them. And her ultimate, Super Mega Death Rocket, lives by its name, doing an insane amount of AoE burst damage that increases based on enemy missing health and distance traveled. So you have one of the highest single target damage per second AD carries, who can then switch to being one of the highest range AD carries, who also has massive AoE burst damage potential. She has a form of self-peel with her traps, and her passive lets her outkite most enemies. Yeah, no wonder she's ranked first. You'd think with this amazing late game scaling, it would come with a weak laning phase, but it's actually incredibly safe and stable with very few, if any, bad matchups. This means you can reliably expect to turn into that 1v9 carry consistently in your games. That being said, no champion is perfect. She does have 3 main weaknesses. First is without a dash or blink, it does leave her vulnerable to the more mobile assassins and engaged champions. Second, she isn't designed as a 1v1 dueler like Kai'Sa, Nyla, or Tristana, so you'll be more vulnerable when caught out alone. And third, she's a medium difficulty champion, as her high attack speed and movement speed during passive procs will require fast and accurate clicks to kite effectively. But that difficulty will not be an issue with our brand new Jinx course on our website. Think you don't need it? Well, did you know Jinx's W will fire faster based on how much attack speed you have? During the laning phase, get the stacks of your minigun passive max before pressing your W on a target. This makes it come out faster, increasing the chances you actually land it. Better yet, instead of just speeding up the animation, you can completely hide your ultimate's windup with this trick. All you have to do is press your E right before you press R, and nearly the entire animation is hidden. This will get you a ton of free kills when the enemy still has flash up to dodge your ult. Our Jinx course is jam-packed with all the most important tricks Challenger Jinx players use to climb ranks fast. Pair it with our brand new multi-chapter AD carry course teaching you everything you need to start carrying as an ADC, and then head on over to our Smurf commentaries. Select your champion to watch live commentaries from Challenger players showing you how to carry out of the exact rank you're stuck in. So what are you waiting for? Click the discount link in the description below to get the rank you've always dreamed of. Alright, and that will do it for this one. What do you guys think of our list? Agree? Disagree? Let us know in the comment section below. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.